compromise some sources. The president did admit that he shared information. Today's meeting is with the president of Turkey. That was expected to be tense already. I'm joined now by CNN's Arwa Damon and Nick Robertson. Arwa, first to you. Again, a lot of sensitive subjects to discuss with the president of Turkey after his election there. Is there concern that this meeting today with Erdogan could be overshadowed by the events of the last 24 hours?
There is, and that is one of the things that is being highlighted by the Turkish media, although they're not focusing too much on the president's alleged intelligence leak. They are focused mostly on the core issues that President Erdogan is going to want to see addressed, and that is an attempt to try to persuade President Trump not to arm the Syrian Kurds, especially not with heavy weapons, because Turkey views the YPG, the Syrian Kurdish faction, as being one and the same as the PKK that Turkey has been fighting within its own borders. What people are also concerned about and taking a very close note of is how potentially the situation between the two countries could very easily escalate. There's a lot at stake here, but at the same time, you have two world leaders who have proven to be unconventional, unpredictable, and both have fairly volatile personalities and can be very easily offended. So we could also potentially see a situation where what has been rhetoric up until now, especially when it comes to President Erdogan's statements that the U.S. basically needs to choose between whether or not it's going to support Turkey, a historic U.S. ally, a NATO ally, or whether it's going to support the Kurds, whether or not that kind of rhetoric can escalate into something much more serious.
Guys, we do have one bit of breaking news that came in just as Ara was speaking there. We just learned that the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, he will talk publicly at 11:30. He will brief the press publicly at 11:30 over this new round of reports over the president sharing information that some people think was classified with the Russians. Two interesting things to point out. Number one, that briefing is 2 hours earlier than we thought it would be. That indicates that the White House did not think it could wait to get the National Security Advisor out there. Number two, it is only H.R. McMaster who will be briefing on camera, indicating that they want General McMaster to be the public face of this story. Not Sean Spicer, not Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It will be General McMaster. Sean Spicer will brief off camera later in the day. So that's happening at 11:30. Please stay tuned for that. That will be fascinating. Nick Robertson, to you. U.S. allies, not just in the Middle East, but around the world, when they see that President Trump shared information, that the reports are highly sensitive, perhaps classified, how do they react and how might they behave differently going forward with this administration?
They're not saying anything publicly. Intelligence agencies rarely do. They're going to couch and grade their assessment on what else they hear, maybe on part on what they hear from General McMaster, who has said so far on the record that the report that was in the Washington Post, that report, he said, was wrong. But that was a very carefully worded statement, so clearly we're likely to get more detail there. But this is what they're going to listen to. They're going to listen to the arguments that are made for and against to try to understand precisely what happened. When President Trump goes to Saudi Arabia later this week, he will meet on this world tour, Saudi Arabia, Israel, the Vatican, NATO, with leaders, the NATO nations there, the G7. In Italy, he's going to meet or see at least about 40 different leaders. And within that 40, in Saudi Arabia, you'll have the Gulf allies and other regional allies and allies at NATO. So you know that one of those leaders, most likely, was the one that had provided this intelligence that was shared with the Russians that is now at the center of this controversy. So that might be an awkward moment. But all these leaders are going to be trying to weigh up what they hear and see on television, read in the newspapers, online, with what they see and hear when they meet the president and see the president themselves, to try to gauge where they really stand with the United States. Can they afford to share information in the way that they used to? Are they going to be concerned that it could be shared with others who they don't want it shared with? So, you know, I think that's what we're going to see. There may be an awkward moment during this coming trip, but there's going to be an assessment and a calibration. At the end of the line, though, for all these allies realize the United States has a hugely powerful intelligence gathering apparatus, and no ally is going to want to really sever or alter a relationship that could cut them off from the sort of quid pro quo, the information flowing back towards them. That will be a worry too.
A very important point there. Nick Robertson for us in London, Arwa Damon in Istanbul. Thank you very, very much. Just moments ago, the former National Security Advisor